Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Super Mario. Let me get this straight. A plumber crawled through sewer pipes to kill a turtle with a flamethrower to rescue a princess? I bet she was very happy about all of that. Now, let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Rosebud Motel. Come sleep away your failures and dream up your future successes at the Rosebud Motel. Welcome everybody to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I'm Todd.
And this is a movie podcast by filmmakers who like to analyze and break apart films. And we're just going to jump straight in this week. Todd, what are we covering today?
Today we are covering Soul, the new Pixar film. It's on Disney Plus. If you have not seen it, spoiler alert for a lot of reasons. Pause this episode, go watch it. It's streaming, like I said, on Disney Plus.
Absolutely. And today, actually, we are joined by the most specialist of guests. We have Simon in the house.
Hello. Hi.
How's it going, man? Simon is who is Simon?
Simon is my son. How old are you, bud?
7.
You're 7?
Mm-hmm.
Almost. How old?
8.
Almost 8.
Ooh.
Why was 6 afraid of 7? Because 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna be 8 in February, man.
Oh, that's exciting. So
Yeah.
I heard that you enjoyed Soul. Can you tell me what is Soul about? What's the story of the movie?
I think it's have a good time when you are alive. Like, yeah, I think
Make the
That's-
most of your life.
Mhm.
It's a good gist.
Sounds
Why
pretty
not?
good. Did you like the movie?
yes.
What did you think of the music?
Yeah, I like the music a lot.
Do you like the piano music, or did you like the music that like the other music that from the movie?
Well, when it was showing Terry, it always had that weird kind of like creepy music and I like that.
Like that?
Yeah, I forgot how it went. It went like
That's some Trent Reznor awesomeness is what that is, buddy.
I try to figure out the morals of like every movie that I watch.
You do, right?
Wow.
And even if you don't get it, you ask me what that meant if you don't get it. But usually you get it. Usually you're like, that meant this. And you're usually right.
I don't get the moral of Moana. I don't.
We could talk about that on another episode. Okay. All right. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome.
You did all right.
Yeah, you did great. Nice. Yeah. So in addition to that, believe it or not, we're going to talk about some other stuff as well. We'll talk about a lot of the story and writing, the death and side missions, the zone, and other such stuff and things and stuff. How about a synopsis?
Sorry, you cut out there.
Oh, I just read the rundown.
You cut out there. Sorry about that. I didn't catch the end. All right. So synopsis of the film. A musician who has lost his passion for music is transported out of his body and must find his way back with the help of an infant soul learning about herself. Directed by Pete Docter. Co-directed by Kemp Powers. Written by Pete Docter, Mike Jones, and Kemp Powers. Cinematography by Matt Aspbury and Ian Megibben. Starring Jamie Foxx as Joe, Tina Fey as 22, Rachel House as Terry, Graham Norton as Moonwind, Alice Braga as Jerry, and Angela Bassett as Dorothea.
I have to ask, how the dickens did you do it? Get that Earth Pass to change?
Oh, you know what? I just let her walk a mile in my shoes, you could say.
Well, it worked.
Yeah.
Well, you should probably get going to the great beyond.
Hey, we never found out what 22's purpose was.
Excuse me?
You know, her spark, her purpose. Was it music, biology, walking?
We don't assign purposes. Where did you get that idea?
Because I have piano. It's what I was born to do. That's my spark.
A spark isn't a soul's purpose. Oh, you mentors and your passions, your purposes, your meanings of life. So basic.
No, it is music. My spark is music. I know it is.
I'm no good. I got no purpose. No purpose. No purpose.
There's so much going on in that short 60 seconds.
I know, right?
I don't even know where to start. How about the music? Was there ever a more Trent Reznor track? I was just like,
before I even knew that he scored this, I knew that he scored this.
absolutely. You're like, is this
Just
Social Network? You could feel it.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't want to say that he is predictable. Definitely not predictable, but he has a sound, I would say, and his sound is simplistic, noticeable. There are motifs that you keep coming back to that are meaningful, and in a way overly hit you over the head. I mean, it's almost like what was that very old piece, very old I don't think it was a film, but it was just like a short animation of where there was no audio, but it was just music, where like there were animals in it, and it might have been an old Disney animation where they would use an oboe for one animal, they would use a violin for another animal. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You probably do. But it reminds it. He's like very, very pointed with, I'm going to play this when we're going to hear this music or this piece, this line when you see this character. And sometimes that's too much. Sometimes it's too like on the nose. But for this, it was just perfect. It was like, yeah, it's unbelievable. His use of a basic piano was amazingly mind blowing. And it's just a piano, and he did it so well, especially in that moment at the end, or towards the end when Joe is playing the piano in his apartment to get in the zone. He starts playing that piece, and it's just, man, I almost had tears. It was just so beautiful. It was so perfect for that moment of, putting the music aside and going in the zone. So yeah, the music was everything for me in this film. It was unbelievable.
Whenever for the score, what do you think he's doing to his piano there? I mean, it sounds piano, but it also has this electric texture to it. And so I'm just curious, if you're listening to that and you're saying, oh, here's what he's doing. He's adding this or that, or
I had no idea.
Because
No
it's him.
idea.
It's him.
Yeah.
Kills
He's
me.
got so much outboard analog synthesizer gear. Like, there's no way that anybody would be able to tell you, oh, he did this and he ran it through that. Like, it's literally impossible. Only he and Atticus Finch know what they did that no one else will know. And they might even not be able to reproduce it. It might be one of those things where like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. Don't touch anything. And then the moment they leave the room, they come back and it sounds different because a different type of current is going through the room. Who knows? That kind of stuff happens when you have that much gear in a space. I don't know if you've seen where they work. It's unreal. I mean, it's like a musician's dream. You just have walls of synthesizers all around you. It's unbelievable.
So what did you think of this? I mean, I know after you watched it, I'm pretty sure you're the one who told me like, hey, have you watched it yet? And I was like, no, not yet. Because I like Pixar movies. I don't make a point to go out of my way and watch them. And whenever you were like, yeah, go ahead and hit play on that bad boy, I was like, oh, nice. Always a good sign. Because they do make a lot of movies now, and they're all good, but they're not all great. Right. To this extent. Like, I don't know if I'm going to watch Cars 2 again or whatever. Like, so yeah, how did you take this in? What hit you about it?
Well, first off, just I didn't know what to expect at all. And I think going into it, seeing a music teacher, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting because I love music and it's Pixar, so I'm expecting it to be done well. And then the moment he sits down at the piano and starts to play, I thought, oh my God, this is going to be incredible because of a couple of reasons. One, it's about jazz. Okay, this is not like this is not like a School of Rock, right? Where there's four chords and the truth kind of thing. This is like, no, this is a player who's dedicated his life to this, and it's not, they're not trying to go mainstream the musical style, right, or anything. They're going deep cuts, and so they're it's about jazz, and I don't listen to enough jazz for as much as I love it. It's one of those things where I have a few jazz albums, but I don't listen to enough of it. But the moment I hear it, I'm just transported to some other place and fall in love with music all over again. It's like it's like an anchor for me, I think. Where yeah, the moment I hear it, I'm just like, oh my God, I love that. I love that so much. That's why I love music. It's because of that. So that, but then bigger than that was how he was playing. They animated him so perfectly, not just him, but all the players so perfectly in their movements. It's the timing with what he's playing and his fingers is flawless. It is perfect. His reaches when he says, he's descriptive and he says, oh, and I saw this guy playing and he started playing and it was like he floated away out of his body and then he hit that minor, ooh, and he hits a minor key, right? And if you watch his fingers, he's playing these notes that are the notes. Like this is whatever human played this jazz piece, this is what his fingers did.
I bet
And
it was
it's
Jamie
so
Foxx.
fluid.
I bet they gave him a piano in studio and let him go.
I'll bet
Yeah.
that guy's insane.
Yeah.
The guy is insane. But yeah, they just the perfection of the movement of it. So we've talked ad nauseum about how much we hate it being obvious that the actor is not either singing or the one singing or playing, the instrument. Well, this animated character was more convincing than 95% of other movies that are shot in reality. It's perfectly done. And not just that, but Dorothea Williams playing the saxophone, her movements were perfect.
Mhm.
It was just like from her breath to her cheeks to the tension in her neck to her finger movements aligning with the notes being played. I'm not a sax player, so I can't tell you, oh yeah, that's a B. She's playing a B. I can't tell you that. But yeah, that was freaking seamless. And then the moment that he goes to the great beyond, when he falls in the manhole was so caught me out of left field, bro. Like I was so excited for this guy. I go from totally identifying with the guy to, I mean, even more identifying with the guy throughout the whole journey of his mom not liking what he does because she wants him to get a real job. Hello, same. Doing jobs he doesn't like or want to do because he needs to make ends meet, but really having this other dream, getting his shot, actually getting the shot. And then this happens. And my feeling when he falls down the manhole was, okay, I'm ready for it to cut to him in a hospital or something like that. And it cuts to him being dead. And my feeling was, no, he just got the shot. That's it. That's what he's been waiting for. No, like it wasn't. I didn't want to be taken out of the world. It was Pixar did what they always do perfectly, is they take something that you're comfortable with and they upend it right at the very beginning. And I wasn't ready for him to leave the Earth yet. I wasn't ready to leave Earth yet. I didn't want to go to the great beyond either. I don't care what it looked like. I didn't want to be there. I want to be back on Earth. I want to see him play his gig, get his shot, and maybe crush it. I don't know, or blow it, but get his shot. And then throughout he gets his shot. It's so fulfilling because he gets his mom to understand what he wants to do in his life, what he's driven to do. He forcefully gets to have his shot playing the gig with Dorothea after he has, gets the gig from the audition, but then he loses it, and then he has to go fight for it back. And then he crushes the gig, and he gets the pie in the sky thing. So it's not like, oh, he's so great, but he blows it at his audition, in the show or whatever. He nails like a his caliber would. And we get to see that. We get to witness it. So we're given everything, just like he's given everything. And then we realize that it's not really about that the story isn't really about that life isn't really about that. It's about what we talked about this whole time. We talk about this all the time. It's about the journey, not the destination. It's about the practice time you put in. It's about the gigs that, at coffee houses that you play for $30. It's about the 2 people that show up when 50 people said that they would. All of these things. When you finally get it, I thought it'd be different. And the story that Dorothea tells him at the end is so freaking flawless. It's so good. Simon kind of gets it. I don't think he fully gets it. I try to explain it to him, but it's just so Pixar, man. It's just on the nose. Anyway, that's just a surface level of some of the walkthrough that I just completely loved.
I love that. I mean, I think I identified in a slightly different way. A lot of the same, I think concepts. But one of the things that drew me in was him as a band teacher really reminded me of my high school band teacher, because I was in regular concert band, marching band, but I was also in jazz band. And my band teacher, coolest black dude on the planet, definitely, in the high school teachers lounge. And he was just absolutely talented. And I think the difference between him and Joe, and he was way cooler than Joe. I think Joe was a good dude, but he was just way cooler than Joe because he loved teaching. My band teacher just loved teaching. And he was recently rewarded in the state with some kind of state recognition. And he changed our program. Like, we were a tiny school that was just crushing everybody else in the state. It was pretty outstanding. But he was also in his own orchestra. Well, not his orchestra, but he participated in the Bryan College Station Brazos Valley Orchestra, or whatever you call it, symphony. And so I watching that, and I was like, man, you got me at jazz, because I'm the same, man. I love jazz, but I don't listen to it enough. I think usually if I'm going to go partake in jazz, I definitely have some records, like I'll throw on some Duke Ellington, John Coltrane, but I really like to go down to the Elephant Room downtown Austin and hear live jazz. Like, that's where I'm going to find my zen for sure. And my favorite trumpet player, Ephraim Owens, is just absolutely amazing. And so I usually check the schedule for when he's going to play, and I'll go down there and watch him do his thing, because he's fantastic. I actually inserted him into a little short piece I did on Austin, like the way I view Austin and how it's perceived by me. I asked him if I could film him. I was like, hey, do you mind if I shoot you playing a little bit? And
I remember that.
he was like, yeah. I had to chase him down though, because like a true jazz musician, he doesn't really do social media or texting or any of that. Like,
I love it.
I don't even know if he had a phone. Like, he was just an absolute jazz musician, man. But this movie had all of that, and I was right there with you, because when he dies, I was not ready to let it go. And as you were saying that, I was like, man, that's such a good point, because that set us up to fight with Joe the entire movie. We want him to succeed. We want him to get his shot. And if they don't really sell that at the beginning of the film, it's going to make for a more arduous journey where you don't want the audience indifferent. And that's probably tricky for them as they're writing it and figuring out all these beats, because how much do modern people really care about jazz or jazz musicians? Like, especially in cartoons, like there's movies about jazz musicians that are really great, like, you know, Whiplash, and there's a Miles Davis movie, and, you know, several others, I'm sure. And it's not something you really see in cartoons. Like, I don't imagine there's a lot of movies about jazz musicians, or cartoon movies about that. And so I can only imagine what they're thinking in the writer's room, where they're like, yeah, we really need to make sure that by the time we kill this character, that the audience is not happy with that, and that they're begging, just like Joe is begging, to get back, because it's absolutely crucial that we root for him, that we're not ready for him to go either, because and I think that's also tricky, because we get to that moment of seeing the great beyond, and we ought to be curious about, well, what is that? What do they think that is? What happens back there? Because they're making those sounds like mosquitoes hitting the electric, stinger. And there's an inherent curiosity, but we're just like Joe, because we want to see what else he can do. He has more life to live. He has more goals to pursue. And I was on board the whole way through. And it took me by surprise, man. I didn't know what happened initially when he fell in the sewer. I didn't know what this movie was going to be. I literally just hit play with zero idea what was about to happen. I didn't know what soul meant. And of course, like Pixar does, it's a bit of a double entendre, because it's about, soul music, and it's also about, souls and what you do on earth with, what does it mean to have soul, and blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, it took me completely by surprise that this guy is dead now. I wasn't even sure if he was dead. I was like, are we just jumping into a new alternate reality? Is this a new dimension that he dropped into? Now he's in like cartoon world. And then
you didn't know he was dead right
not
away?
Initially.
Okay.
Until they like cut to the big light. And I was like, oh, we're doing that.
Got it.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. And I love all the thoughtfulness. This works in so many layers, that Pixar does well. It's never just about going from A to B. It's never just about the journey itself. Like, as amazing as that is, it's always layered with other aspects of the journey. What does the journey mean, really? And I love that on whatever level it even hits a 7-year-old in the head. Like, that's freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Which
he loved it after the first viewing. He said he just loved it. I was like, all right, let's watch it again. We watched it the next night.
That's so cool. And I'll jump through some notes, and I'm going to pick your brain definitely periodically, and you'll jump in as normal, but I have some questions, because there's certain things I couldn't quite articulate very well that I think you'll probably say better. But story and writing is really all I was thinking about through this whole thing. First off, death. I think the idea of introducing kids to the idea of death and beyond, and meaning of life, which is inherent with the conversation of death, that's amazing. And they do it in such an innocent way that you never feel overwhelmed by it, even though they use these tones and this imagery that could easily be like scary and overwhelming to a kid. They do it in just the absolute lightest touch that they do so well. I was just absolutely blown away. But I love how they foreshadow the death. Like, he makes that comment on the phone with Curly, which is Questlove, if people don't know. And he's like, man, you're doing this gig with Dorothea Williams, man. I would die a happy man if I could perform with Dorothea Williams. Well, you just might get your chance. Like, it's right there. They're just lacing up those shoelaces. And then on his way, right, he's just so focused. He's so intent. He's nearly hit by cars, and on his way back, still almost hit by cars and bricks. And that woman is yelling at him, hey, you're going to get hurt. And then he falls in the manhole. And I already mentioned, like, I was really confused. But what makes that really great, because they kind of allow the confusion to settle in. If you don't jump to the obvious conclusion, they don't make it immediately obvious. They don't have him asking, did I die? No, I can't die. Like, they let the moment kind of play out and explore it. And they're making you ask questions and discover the world, instead of, just pointing out boom, he lands. Oh, I'm dead. Like, no, we're going to take, the next couple minutes to let you explore this new scenario and adjust just like he's adjusting. And every step of the way, we are in Joe's shoes, and they do a great job of helping us identify with him. And to that end, they do a great job of using all these like side missions, is what I'm kind of calling them. Because whenever he finally gets back to Earth, right, he inhabits Mittens, the cat, and 22 is taking over his body. Suddenly now he still has his mission. He has his goal. I need to get back into my body, and along the way, not blow my opportunity with Dorothea. And so he's lining everything up, and there's all these things that he has to do. Like, he has to change out of the gown first, right? I got to stop looking like a crazy person. And so they run back to his apartment, and 22, and it's not just a mission for the sake of having a mission. There's things that accomplish something to the end of the story. It all adds up to something, which, if you haven't listened to recent past episodes, actually means something to the viewer, to us specifically, but to viewers everywhere, I'm sure, because they go and they change out of the gown. And then what happens when he's there, right? Connie, the trombonist from his band, his high school band, comes by for her lesson, and she's wanting to quit. And 22 is like all about it. She's like, yeah, screw this, man, quit. But then along the way, 22 learns how passionate people can be about their gifts or about life. I don't know. And this is one of the questions I have for you, is like, how would you describe the lesson that 22 learns right there in the hallway with Connie playing the trombone? Because there's this light bulb that goes off that I can't quite put my finger on.
That's I don't really know. I think it's well, first off, she sees someone love something for the first time. I mean, that's innocent, right? So we know I guess that's not true, because she saw Joe. She knew that Joe loved playing music before, right? But I don't think she saw him play. Like, she saw, in his life, when they were in the what do they call it? Not the afterlife, but the
museum or something.
The pre-life, whatever. Yeah, the museum of Joe's life,
yeah.
Right? She sees him play, but I think it was the first time while she was alive in Joe's body that she got to see someone, a kid, innocent, who was supposed to not like this life and music or anything, not like something, actually like it, even though she said she didn't. And so it was a little bit of confusion for 22, because she she's under the assumption that you have to love, like, there's something that you have to absolutely love, right? One specific thing. And maybe she realizes that, like, you, in that moment, that you don't have to, it doesn't have to be so black and white. Like, this little girl says she hates this thing, but she's actually really good at it. And actually she really does like it. I can't really put my finger on it either. I think you're right. It was just maybe she had seen it before with Joe, but it was just like she'd seen it for the first time. That happens with people all the time, where you've heard something 100 times, but when you hear it the right way from the right person at the right time, all of a sudden it's the first time you've ever really heard it. And maybe that could have been it, because 22 has been under such, crazy stress with this transformation of, now I'm in a body and I'm alive and I'm on Earth and I've had pizza for the first time, and I'm in an apartment for the first time. I got scratched by a cat for the first time. I'm in all these things, and she's finally sitting down and saying, "Yeah, I agree with you. This is crazy. This is ridiculous. This planet is insane. I want to get off." Yeah, and realizing, like, oh, there's something different here. It's not. I don't know.
I think
I
you're
don't know
right.
either.
I think you're right, though. I think that realization that it isn't black and white, that she says she doesn't want to do it anymore, but she clearly loves it. And I think also, just to add on to that, because she's number 22 of the infant souls, which means she's basically been there since the beginning.
Yeah.
She was first batch. She was the first pancake. And and she has been instructed by all the greats throughout history, Muhammad Ali and Copernicus, and just world-changing people. And so I think you're right. Like, in her mind, it had to be one thing. You had to love and be passionate about a thing. And even when she's, vamping for time to keep Joe around from going into the great beyond, she's talking to Jerry and saying, "Oh yeah, I think I might be into breakdancing actually." And Jerry's like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." Like Jerry never really puts together the problem that she's having, that you don't have to have a purpose in the way that you think you need to have a purpose. Like, that's not. And so, yeah, I think her kind of experiencing that conflict, and then the joy of witnessing someone doing what they love and discovering it. I think that's right. Or it's in the neighborhood. I'm glad I'm not the only one struggling.
Why not?
And then after that, right, he needs a haircut because he completely, cats are not good at giving haircuts apparently. And so he runs over to the barbershop, which I love. If you've never been to a black barbershop, it's different. It's not like a white hair salon or anything like that. And I've been to white barbershops too, and it's not quite like that either. It's similar. They're not a world apart. But the rules are different, and each their own. And so I really loved, just them popping in there. And I saw that Questlove was a cultural consultant, is what they labeled it in the credits.
Oh,
and so I'm
okay.
sure he had a lot of input on that, that scene and the texture of that scene. Because it's right, man. You can't, if you make an appointment or you go in and you wait in line, and they'll get to you when they get to you. And trust me, you want to make an appointment, because I used to never do it. I used to my schedule was crazy, so I had to kind of pop in when I could, and you would start talking shit. I mean, it's all the fun stuff that you probably imagine, and it's all love. And so I love that whole environment, but also love Joe. The lesson that she's learning from Joe is, once again, it doesn't have to be one thing, because Joe wanted to be a veterinarian, which I thought was kind of a clever play that was happening in there. On the one hand, Joe was not Joe, excuse me, the barber's name.
The barber.
Yeah. Des. God.
Des.
So I've been saying Joe for like 10 minutes here. Des wanted to be a veterinarian. And what I think is funny about that is he wanted to be a vet, even though he technically was a vet, because he was a Navy veteran. And so he's a vet who wanted to be a vet. I think they're doing a little fun wordplay in there within that. But I love that, he enjoys being a barber. Like, he loves what he's doing. And to him, it didn't feel like he settled. Like, he's doing something that he loves and he enjoys, and that it's not one thing. And it also sets up something that's, semi-important, is that whenever you're in the chair, you're king. Like, this is your show. And so it sets up the idea that there are moments where you're important and you can decide what you want, which goes hand in hand with what Des is talking about. Des is saying that I wanted this other thing, but then it changed, and now I really want this other thing. And that's okay. And that same idea of, when you're in the chair, you get to decide. And now she's in the chair, and she gets to decide, I want a lollipop. And she enjoys the lollipop. And then later on in the film, when it's time for her to give up Joe's body, 22 says this really great comment: "No, I'm in the chair," and she runs away. And it's this very simple analogy that she's making that ties back. And as the audience, you understand exactly what she means without her having to spell it out. She doesn't have to say, "No, this is like whenever I was in the barbershop and I was in the chair and I get to make decisions." No, it just ties up right there in a line, and it has what Shakespeare would say is the brevity that is the soul of wit. Like, no, I'm in the chair. It just flees. I love that. It all dovetails so nicely. I love the other little side mission is after the barbershop, she rips the suit, right? Oh, it is loosening up. And now they got to go fix it. They got to go fix the suit. And it's this great moment where finally Joe gets to have it out with his mom and gets to say what actually makes him happy and what she kind of keeps discouraging from him. Because this movie really is about nuance, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I love that they're driving at something that's more gray area than most movies make. Most movies try to paint a very black and white picture. Like, it's not about that. It's about, it's about this. And this movie is so much more gray and nuanced than that. And so setting up this scene, though, I love the transition that they make from him, the cat, whispering into her ear, here's what I want you to say to her. And we kind of start doing this little camera move that breaks the 360 rule, that normally the camera stays on kind of one side of the room to help you orient yourself within the scene. And if they break that, if they cross over that line between two characters, there's usually a point to that. And in this case, they're using it as a transition to let Joe go from being the cat and 22, the translator in Joe's body, and instead allows Joe to speak uninterrupted directly to his mom so that we can have a much stronger, direct, uninterrupted emotional connection with him and what he's trying to say. And of course, at the end of that scene, something shifts for Joe and for him and his mother, because now she has gone from not understanding to understanding. She gives him, I think it's his dad's old suit. Is that right? The old blue suit. Tailors it for him. It's beautiful. Waterworks. Cue him. And then we also have like Terry, different kind of side mission. We introduced Terry, and now we kind of have a villain, and it's fun because there's no true villain in this other than the lost soul, like avoiding becoming a lost soul, which we'll get to momentarily. But I love that Terry is a great tool because he kind of pops up whenever it serves the story. It's like there's no reason he has to arrive at any given point in time, right? He needs to rummage through this insanely large room of files. And that can take as long as the story needs it to take, right? He can go as fast or slow. The room can be as big or as small as is convenient for the story. And even whenever he finishes that, right, now we get to set up, well, what is it he's going to do once he finds out the issue? And now he's going to catch Joe. And we kind of see what that looks like by having him catch the wrong person. And he scares the daylights out of that other guy. It is great. That. Yeah, it's a great
that moment too. That was so good.
It's so good, especially because it almost feels lightly justified because of the way that character's portrayed, and I'm forgetting his name. But he's just kind of pooping on Joe's dreams, right? It's like anybody can play in a band, and then they just dress him down, and I forget what he says. It was something like, "That was really mean, Joe." It's cold-blooded.
Yeah.
And then they have Terry catch him, and so you don't feel super bad for him. I mean, you're not happy for him. It takes away some of the sting of having a character go through that moment by making it a little bit more funny, and also allowing us to see what awaits Joe. Here's what's at stake. He's going to get dropped immediately into the great beyond, and that sets up the tension. It ratchets up the stakes a lot, so that we really need Joe to get it all straightened out. Sooner the better. And then the zone. Let's discuss the zone, because this is a really interesting thing, and they set it up really nicely at the very beginning, where Connie, the trombone player, closes her eyes, right, and loses herself while playing. We don't know what's happening there, but we know, like, oh, she just kind of went somewhere. Like, she was just so in the moment. And of course, Joe goes into the audition with Dorothea and loses himself. And then we go a step further. It's just not only losing himself, but we kind of see the zone, and we get it. We get what's happening. Like, oh, he's completely lost himself in the music. And so they just gradually baby step us all the way into what is the zone. And we get introduced to it, right? But we also see how the zone can become your trap, right? It's your greatest joy. The only reason why you experience the zone is because of how much you are experiencing your joy. But then we also see how it can become your trap, right? Those are the lost souls who either have no connection to life, or they've allowed their joy to snare them by becoming too much about the pursuit of the thing instead of the enjoyment of the thing. Because I really appreciate it's light. They don't really drill down too hard on it. But they insinuate that the day trader, the stock trader, right? The guy who works in stock, like he was only lost soul because he actually enjoyed his job at some point. At some point, he really enjoyed it and it put him in a blissful state. At some point, it became too much about whatever the money, is also the connection there. And freeing him of that, finally realized, like, my time here is done. Like, we're alive. Go experience life. But I still like the idea conceptually that it's okay to work in stocks and trades and to enjoy working on Wall Street and analysis. I love analysis. We do a show about analysis. I'm sure in another life, I would have deeply loved working in stocks and bonds and on Wall Street, and, just for the pure joy of manipulating numbers and playing around and speculating and thinking about businesses and what they can add to the world and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of good things for all the hate that, is rightly, I'm not saying Wall Street hasn't earned a lot of ire, but there's also a lot of good that can come out of it as well. It's not quite as lopsided, I think, as we want it to be. But anyway, did not intend to go down that little side street, but
non sequitur there.
Non sequitur at all. But at the end, right, talking about the zone still, at the end, he gets his job back in the quartet, and there's something interesting that happens because he had just had this conversation, that soundbite that we played at the beginning about, oh, you humans and your, your purposes, so basic. and he gets his job. My only purpose on this earth is to play music. It's what I was meant to do. It's like he didn't hear it yet. He heard it. He was right there, but his heart hasn't heard it yet. And he has a great show. But what I really thought was interesting about that show is that he never gets into the zone. He never zones out. And then he leaves, and it's that comment, that conversation that you were talking about earlier, Todd, because he says, man, I've been waiting on this day my entire life. I just thought it would feel different. And she tells that great story about the fish that's looking for the ocean. And the old fish is like, you're in the ocean. She's like, this is water. What I want is the ocean. Well, Joe, see you tomorrow. And she just walks away. She doesn't hand it to him. It's like, you're going to get it or you're not, man. And I love that because Joe, I think, assigned his happiness to a goal instead of to his joy of what he loved doing. And so he kind of goes home feeling deflated and aimless. And looking at the items that 22 had collected, we see this is brilliant storytelling right here because he's remembering her experiences. He didn't experience these things, but because they shared a body, they shared a memory, we suddenly are understanding that he's remembering the things that she experienced and understanding what it was that she suddenly found her spark in. These are the things that cause spark. And it's such a great, simple expositional moment without a word. They never say it. They're trusting the audience to understand what's happening in this moment as we're watching him, as he's looking at these items, as he's re-experiencing these moments. It's all just really strong visual storytelling. And you could study that sequence as a filmmaker and as a storyteller to understand how to visually communicate exposition, because it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And this flows into him reflecting on his own life's simple pleasures as he starts remembering his own experience, his childhood, and seeing his dad play and all those moments. And he's suddenly realizing, like, oh, it's just the joy of it. That's what it is. And so at that moment, right, he plays for the simple pleasure of it and just zones out. And he finds 22. And this is such a cool moment because they start doing things that I could not have predicted or expected. If you had stopped the movie at this point and said, what are some things you would like to see? I would have been like, I don't know. I want to see 22 get, life, and I want to see Joe get happiness. And I would not have expected for them to start breaking rules that we hadn't considered could be broken. Like the Lost Soul, 22 breaks into the U seminar, and it's absolute chaos. I didn't know I wanted to see that, but I did. And it's so genius because she can't break anything. You can't hurt anybody. And so why not let her go crazy? Why not let her
throw
yeah.
and throw children
and throw them everywhere.
It's so good. And they're laughing. It's so great.
It's brilliant. And he gives her, right, and I don't know what this is. Is it a butterfly wing? A leaf, or I don't know what it is.
It's a seed.
It's
a pine tree seed. That's what's in pine cones.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what it was, which is totally fine because it still worked the same in the sense that it's a worthless item, but it's personally meaningful, and therefore it's fulfilling. Therefore, it brings joy and happiness. It's something that you could not probably get anybody to pay you money for, really, unless there's a pine cone tree planter that's run out of pine cones. I don't know. I have no idea what would take.
Pine cone shortage.
Yeah.
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. It's completely worthless otherwise. Like, you find it on the street in New York. Like, it's everything to her. To her, it meant something. And so it kind of dives into this idea of what's the bigger, and I don't know. To me, I found like there was, and I don't know enough about this philosophy or religion, but it's kind of this Buddhist idea of like finding your Zen. Maybe it's about connecting to life and finding passion and seeing the wonder that surrounds us, without letting it become the means. And it goes back to what I think you were saying at the beginning, like, it is about the journey. It's not about the destination. He got his destination and he put all this expectation on it instead of saying, this is just another part of my journey and I'm just going to enjoy this while it lasts and enjoy doing what I enjoy to do. I don't know. How would you view that? What is the zone to you? What does it kind of emblemize?
Well, I mean, for me, I go to it all the time, and it's not necessarily a good thing. It's like I can't stay there. I can't stay there for too long. I just kind of like neglect people and things and that I'm supposed to do. So I identify with that a lot, and I mean, I've been like that. Like most of my life, I have these goals and I'm just so dedicated to them. And if I can't reach them, then, either I didn't do enough or something, inhibited me at some point or whatever. There's a million, reasons or excuses, but it's like, it's this whole like, go kind of scenario. Even when I know that that's not the purpose behind it. So to see that, like physically see that in a creature like scary as hell form, even Simon said that those things are scary, was pretty amazing. It was pretty eye-opening. It felt like yeah, I have been that. I have been there. I'm not there right now, but I could get back there real easy. There's a difference between doing what you love and being quote unquote in the zone and just flowing and loving it, whether that's whatever, working out, music, writing, art, whatever it might be, and being just obsessed to the point where nothing else in life matters. I mean, for me, it hasn't always been music. It was sports at one point, different sports, at one point. Iron Man at one point, like it just, but I guess it took me 40 years to really understand that, I could enjoy all of those things. And that is a part of me. They're all a part of me, to this point, and there might be something else, later, and that's okay too. You see these. I'm so sick of all these memes and stuff that are online and on social media about if you have a day job, you're never going to get rich working, making someone else rich and all this stuff. Like, I'm sick of that crap. Not everybody is born to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is born to be the best pianist on the planet. Not everybody is or wants to be. There are a lot of people who have wonderful lives, who live, who have day jobs, and are thankful as hell to have them. I, for one, am one. So those kinds of things drive me nuts, and it's because I'm saying that because it's okay to not be 1,000% dedicated to one thing, right? It's okay to see life for the plethora of colors that and it's just wonderful to see them put that into a visual, and then to allow 22 to become one because she technically was alive, right? Because she couldn't become one if she never had her spark in the first place, because you can't get lost in your spark, but since she found her spark, she was able, and was alive, she was able to go there, but it turned bad because her spark was hating herself or thinking that she wasn't enough. And so it like kind of flipped on her. So it was brilliant for that to happen, and for her to just be this like really strong, like powerful, lost soul, was really cool. And it was heartwarming and just fantastic. And then at the end, them giving Joe another chance. It was just great. There's no reason, normally we sit here and we say there needs to be a cost to everything, or to like some things there in films, not everything, but some things there needs to be a cost. But here, I really like that they did that. Yeah. I really like that they gave him another chance. And I think my favorite part about this whole movie, though, other than the music and maybe 4 other parts that I've already said, is Terry. Well, first off, giving all of the Jerrys and Terry those accents, like having them be Aussies, is just fantastic. Like, it would have been not half as good if it would have been just, a normal American voice, accent. It's just freaking awesome. And then when they're presenting Terry with the
trophy,
the trophy, present you with this trophy that you requested. And then at the end, when he says, well, what about Terry? Oh, we took care of Terry. And oh, look over there. Just like that, just that little adjustment. Oh, we took care of him. So cool, so amazing. They allow Terry to be what he is, which is a stickler to the rules. And they solve that problem very easily, but they give that to us. And so allowing him to go back is just brilliant and wonderful and heartwarming. And it doesn't matter, if he calls Lisa. It doesn't matter if he continues to play with Dorothea Williams. None of that really matters. And so we don't get any of those answers. But those questions are raised. 22 says, why don't you call Lisa? Oh, it's not the right time in my life. You have to die twice. I caught that the third time I watched it. That's a great little moment right there. Oh, it's not the best time in my life for a relationship. You have to die twice. Yeah. Any of you out there, call Lisa. Just all these little bitty things were just so wonderful. And I don't know if you noticed a lot of the tie-ins to some of the other films, but especially in the Hall of Everything, or wherever it is where they go to try to find their spark. There's a lot of references to other films. The ship is in there from WALL-E. There's a balloon in there from Up. The Zeppelin kind of thing is in there. There's a door from Monsters Inc. in there. They're all like these little hidden things. You got to pause it a lot. Like there's
Because
like
I was
these little
looking
moments of like,
and I couldn't.
yeah.
I definitely didn't pause, but even just I think I picked out maybe one thing, and it's not even 100%, sure thing.
Oh, okay.
Like I
Look
think
again. There's one moment where you can see the giant ship from outer space from Wall-E is like way in the distance,
that's so
in the
good.
back, like in the air. It's like whatever. Anyway, so they do these little things, but there's also these really hidden things. There's one moment that really was intriguing to me, and I don't really fully know the reason or the significance of it, other than to kind of, I don't know if it ties into another Pixar film, or I think it might, or if it's just to kind of scare adults who might get it, where Terry says, "We've lost a soul, we lost a soul," and um, Jerry says, "That hasn't happened in centuries."
Jesus.
Well, if it hasn't happened in centuries, then a lot of souls have escaped, which is creepy. It's very creepy to me if a lot of souls have escaped, right? Because where are those souls? On Earth somewhere, wreaking havoc or scaring the crap out of people. I think that might be some kind of a reference to either like a Monsters Inc. reference where, like going from one dimension to another or something through a doorway. There's a lot of doorways happening here, right? But also like I don't know. I feel like a lot of references to Monsters Inc. here. Also the powering of so the children get their power through finding their spark. Well, their spark is everything that they can experience on Earth. So Earth is basically powering the children, right? In order to get them to Earth, right? And then all these doorways. There's doorways everywhere, man. There's doorways in the from Earth to the before life and the afterlife. They open doorways to show him the afterlife, and like just they go through doors all the time. And there's tons of that's how Monsters Inc. transfers people and or the monsters. And but that one comment of that hasn't happened in centuries also makes me think of like a almost like a I don't know. There's another film reference that I haven't been able to put my finger on from a Pixar movie that I'm sure I'm going to figure it out after this episode, but it's something that has, I watched it all 3 times, and all 3 times I'm sitting there thinking, what is that film that they're referencing? It's got to tie to something.
I took it as a kind of a joke about Jesus, like, Jesus escaped. I don't know. Like you could go a lot of directions with that.
Yeah, that's great. That would be the one reference to God in here.
Yeah.
There is no other reference.
None,
like
none whatsoever.
That's another wonderful thing that they actually got away with doing, like not referencing God
without being offensive at all.
Totally. There was that one reference when Joe first dies and he's on the conveyor belt and he sees those 3 characters, and that one character says something about, I was wrong about the walrus or something.
Oh, turtle?
No, walrus.
Was it a walrus?
It was some reference to a walrus. Like it beats my he's looking at this white light, and she said something like, it beats my thought of a walrus or something like that. And that really is the only reference, that I caught that would be religious in any way. If that is religious. I don't even know if it is.
Yeah,
but
I got nothing on that.
I don't know.
The only other like random comment that just cracked me up in this, and it's super fast, but it felt like a little bit of a jab from Pixar itself, which was whenever we're watching all the things that she's explored. 22's tried this and she's tried that. One of them, she was painting and she throws her brush down and says, "Hands are hard." And that's just so funny because hands are very hard to draw. If you've never tried to draw hands, it's just as hard as trying to draw Texas. Like it's just, you just never get it quite right. It's like, why do hands look like hands, and how do they? To the point where I've been practicing like sketching, and I cannot draw hands, and I thought maybe I'm just particularly bad. And so I brought it up to my roommate, who's an artist, and he's been drawing, most of his life. And he was like, "Oh no, hands are hard. All artists think hands are hard." To the point where he's actually about to take a workshop just so that he can get better at like drawing hands.
Oh, wow.
Hands are so hard. And so whenever she said that, I was like, oh, that's totally the cartoonist making a joke about how freaking hard hands are to draw. And that just really tickled me pink.
Made you feel better about yourself?
Absolutely. But this was great in another way. It made me feel better about myself, just because I've really hit the wall lately, like in this playing in this idea of like, enjoy, the things that you enjoy, and don't turn it into your own trap. Because I've been trying to write lately, and man, it's terrifying. Like I just cannot break my story. It feels a little bit like trying to invent a bicycle while you're writing it. It's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and it's going to be terrible, and everything's going to suck. And then to be reminded, in this movie is like, hey, it's not that critical. Enjoy what you're doing. Like, just take a minute, go back into your zone, find your zen, and just kind of space out. And what is it you really enjoy about the process? And so I'm going to take a note from Soul and try to work on that in my own life. Nice. Yeah. Any final thoughts or comments about Soul?
No, not really. Nothing that I haven't said before. I think this might be one of my favorite Pixar films. I don't know about my absolute favorite, just because it's not as endearing to me yet in my life. But if you ask me in the next 5 or 10 years, I might change my mind. I think that there's just, every time I've watched it, and I've watched it 3 times already, I find something else to love about it. The fact that there's all of these little things, it makes me want to keep coming back to it and watch it again and again and again. All the characters are super lovable. I mean, if you ever want any kind of tips on writing a story, go to this movie, this one in particular. I mean, all Pixar films have an incredible storylines, incredible circular storylines, but this one in particular just has so much depth to it and simplicity at the same time that I don't think that any other Pixar movie has to this degree. You'll learn more watching this film 20 times than you will watching 20 other Pixar films once, for sure. To me at least. I just think that it just encapsulates all that Pixar has been trying to do for the last 20 years into one film.
And it's perfect.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, because it's so funny, just to bang on that point, is because it's an arc. We see them do the same idea of, we watch a person go from A to B. They're going to make a shift. It's not going to be like a world-changing shift. It's a simple shift in their perspective. And they do it every single movie, and we love it every single movie. There's never a time when, we can kind of see where the character's problem is, that we don't enjoy watching him move past that problem and resolve that. It's the simplest thing in the world, completing that circle, and every single time it's satisfying. Big note for sure.
Yeah. And there's I will send you a link to some of the Easter eggs, unless you want to just look for them.
No. Send the link. Yeah.
Okay. I just did a quick search. Even though I saw like several of these in my third viewing, but there are some here that are pretty cool that, I mean, honestly, you would not notice,
I think,
but they put in there.
The only one I think I saw, and this might have just been me, creating things, was right before they enter that playroom with all the things. They're outside the box, and it looks like Andy's playroom. It looks like one of the little play bouncy balls, kind of off to the left.
That's one.
Is it? Okay, I got one.
It is one.
That's
It
the
is
only one I found. But
Yeah, they had
nice.
the Pizza Planet car in there,
That's good.
and they have the Pixar light, the lamp,
Oh,
and a bunch of other like tiny things like 22's name. There's 22 Pixar films, and
I
then
was trying to figure out where 22
yeah,
came from, so thank you for that.
yeah.
That's really
I mean, I knew that that's one of these, but then there's other things that I did not know that you would never know, like numbers, hidden places, and stuff like that. It's just this like really wonderful homage to the other films, which is why maybe inherently I feel like it's just so endearing and like a note. It's like a love letter to the other Pixars of old. Like,
Yeah,
we love you. Thank you for setting this up to happen, because this wouldn't happen without that.
that's cool.
At least not to this degree.
Yeah,
Right?
but it's acknowledgement. Like there was a number in there. I'm sure it means something. It was like P742 or something like that. And I was like,
Oh yeah.
was it like a license plate or something? I kind of forget.
Oh,
Um,
I don't know.
yeah,
I don't
but
know.
I'm definitely looking at that, and we'll add it to the show notes so that anybody curious can go look up all the references.
Cool.
Nice. So, what are you going to recommend this week?
Yeah, this week I'm going to stick with Pixar because why not? We're on that train. And I'm going to recommend my favorite Pixar film, WALL-E.
Nice.
I got nothing to add to it. Just go watch it if you haven't before. It will blow your mind. And that was, I think, when the original Pixar guys sat down, they had 3 ideas that they sketched out when they had like coffee or something. They had 3 ideas. One of them was, I think, Finding Nemo. One of them was Toy Story, and the other was WALL-E. And I think WALL-E might have been, I don't know, the second or third film. I can't even remember. But to me, it's the most brilliant animated film I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah.
I can't, full film. There are
Yeah.
animated shorts that are just, other Pixar animated shorts are also incredible.
Yeah, that's true.
But this one is definitely my favorite.
Nicely done. Yeah, I'm going to stick on the cartoon front as well, or animation, however you want to put it. And I'm going to recommend a Netflix movie. It's called A Silent Voice. It's if you want to feel deeply about all the things, it's a Japanese film, and it's absolutely, you will cry. If you need a good cry, go watch that movie. It's about a bully and how a bully tries to make amends after realizing that he was a bully.
Ooh,
It's
that's amazing.
yeah. I never would have thought of making
And that's
a
on
movie
Netflix?
about that. Yeah, it's on Netflix.
Okay, I'm gonna go watch that.
Oh man.
I might watch that tonight.
Yeah, I might too. Actually, now that I'm throwing it out there.
Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. Did you know
Please.
John Batiste played on this?
No.
He might have been the one playing the piano.
Oh.
I don't know if he was the one playing the piano. I'm not totally sure, but I know that he played at least on a couple of parts. They actually quote him they list him as a musical something or other in the credits that I noticed.
So there was a guy that was playing in the subway, and I looked it up in the credits to figure out who was singing in the subway, and I think I misread it because it said it was John Ratzenberger or the Cliff Clavin from Cheers, and I was like, "There's no way that guy's singing was freaking Cliff Clavin." So I don't know who that was. It might have been John Batiste, but it was just a beautiful freaking voice, and I think he was strumming the guitar or something, but nice, yeah. Anyway, stay tuned for next week. We are going to be covering a long overdue, first time Paul Thomas Anderson has popped up on the show. And so we're going to be doing Magnolia. This is a request from Izzy. We've had in the hopper for quite a bit. And so finally happy to get to that. So stay tuned for that. Go watch it. It's currently streaming on HBO Max. And don't forget, subscribe, drop us a review, leave us a note if you want to talk about a film. Next week is a request. So miracles do happen. And we always just love to hear from everybody. We actually had a really great comment from Nick on YouTube, and he was like, "Hey guys, I really love what y'all are doing." He dropped it on Memento episode, and he was like, "I can hear the passion in your voices when you talk about films, and I really enjoy it." So appreciate
cool.
you, Nick.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, and he was actually from Australia, so very appropriate. Yeah,
I stole that from him.
yeah, that's right.
I like that. I say that all the time now.
Yeah. And if you want to leave a note on this episode, you can drop a comment at thepestlepodcast.com/soul.
Today's quote of the day is from Jean-Michel Basquiat. Art is how we decorate space. Music is how we decorate time. That's just brilliant. Wow.
So genius.
In so many ways, not just in the moment of, the however long the musical piece is, but just decades, years. You think of the 80s, you have a musical sound in your head. You think of the 90s, you have another one. Like that's the 60s, you have another one. That's so amazing. Wow, what an amazing quote, man.
That guy
I don't know where you find all these, but you're very good at it.
That one just popped in my head. It came out of, I've spent a lot of time interviewing artists, and one of the guys that I interviewed had been in the show. If you're not familiar with Basquiat, he's one of the most famous contemporary artists that we have. He's no longer alive, but he came up in the 80s. And it's like right next to Andy Warhol when you're talking about famous artists in modern eras. And so this guy, this artist was like, I was in a show at the Basquiat, and he was incredible, obviously, but he was also just mad. Like, he would do outrageous things, and at one point he kind of busted up into a restaurant and barged over to Andy Warhol's table. Andy Warhol had no idea who this guy was. He was nobody at the time, and Warhol was everything. And sits down, and he's like, we're gonna have a conversation, whatever. And he was just kind of getting blown off by Warhol, as I guess you would expect, but just the guts on Basquiat. He took a napkin and like drew on it and like threw it to Warhol and like walked off. And Warhol looked at him and was like, "Oh shit, this guy is a freaking genius." Like it's such a it's apocryphal, but it's so good. So I was like, I wonder what Basquiat, because that whole idea of drawing hands are hard, I guess, sent me down a spiral. So Basquiat,
amazing. Wow,
genius.
Incredible quote, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging with us this long. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Simon for his opinion on this. That was dope,
so
brother.
Fun.
Thank you, my homie. This has been so much fun. I loved this film. I'm really glad you did too. And I hope you at home did as well. And we didn't ruin anything for you because we warned you.
True. This was actually a request from Shamari on top of it all. So, yeah.
Oh, well,
a lot
perfect.
of people wanting it. So.
Good timing. Because this obviously was supposed to be released in the theaters, but then they released it over Christmas as like a Christmas present. Disney Plus did as like a Christmas present. Disney Plus is known for doing that, just kind of giving things out, they did that with Hamilton too. So anyway.
Very cool.
It is. Thank you guys so much for listening. Subscribe, review on iTunes or wherever you're listening. Share us with your friends. It all helps and it all matters. Until next week, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.